It's not actually a settlement. It's not actually for $1.8 billion. There's going to be effectively no oversight whatsoever. Even if there is an audit, then Todd Blanche he appoints the person who does the audit. He can veto the audit if he wants to. This is one of the most transparent and corrupt acts that I've seen. And in this presidency, that's actually a difficult standard.
You're shaking your head.
Well, that's not correct.
John Iadarola from the Young Turks went on CNN and sat across from Zaharia, one of these MAGA commentators who appears to have been specifically designed in a lab to deflect every single question back to Biden and the Democrats. And the topic on the table is the same one we keep coming back to, this $1.8 billion fund with no real oversight, no real accountability, and no real limit on how much can actually be spent. John Iadarola came ready. Let's watch how this plays out, and I will give you my full thoughts on the other side.
Bring in my political sources, conservative legal and political strategist Katie Zaharia on the right, and host of the Damage Report on the Young Turks Network, John Iadarola on the left. Great to see both of you. Welcome. John, is this good strategy for Democrats, the idea of impeachment?
I agree with Josh that it should be aired out in public. And it is possible that this is the sort of thing, especially involving the J6ers, that could potentially break through. And I think it's wildly unconstitutional, illegal. As a patriotic American, it makes me sick that they would do this. That said, there's an opportunity cost to focusing on this over some issues that are already proven to be dragging on Donald Trump's numbers. The war in Iran, gas prices, the Epstein scandal. Like, if you are focusing on this, you're not focusing on those things. There's a chance that this could break through, or it could be one of those things that to us is super relevant, but could be a little bit abstract to regular people.
Your thoughts?
Well, I take first issue with the GOP senators and Senator Cruz. I would have loved to see that outrage to Merrick Garland during the Biden era went home, and I saw none of that outrage or pull
well, they weren't big fans of Merrick Garland, were they?
But they weren't. Torching him like they said they were to acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Look, there is precedent. Obama had a precedent. It's called Keep Siegel. It was a $760 million fund. And it was people who had grievances against the federal government. President Trump and his family are not receiving any money from this. They have put their hands up. This is for other have claims. And there are many already that have stepped up to the plate. This isn't a payout to his family as he said, this is a payout to people who have been that their justice system has been weaponized against them.
Do you think that folks involved with January 6th deserve a payout from the federal government?
If they were targeted, and I think there is a delineation on violent offenders and people that were targeted just for being at the Capitol. There are people that were there that were not violent, that were targeted, their businesses were targeted, and then they either were imprisoned or fined, and I think they had a hard time getting out from under that. They should be able to receive compensation if there wasn't due process on were you violent, how did you participate in this? Now, if you were violent and you did something at the Capitol that needs evaluation, sure, but this is a huge difference, and they're taking one small group of people and casting a big net around everyone, and I think that really undermines the fact that there was a weaponized judicial system under Biden, and it needs to be addressed.
Is this a good use of $2 billion of taxpayer money?
It's better than more ballrooms, I suppose. But no, it's a terrible use. And people keep throwing the $2 billion around. There's nothing in the document that says it's limited to $1.8 billion. It could be whatever they want it to be, and they could change their mind over time. There's a lot that's being colloquially thrown around that doesn't actually bear out in the document. It's not actually a settlement. It's not actually for $1.8 billion. There's going to be effectively no oversight whatsoever. Even if there is an audit, then Todd Blanche he appoints the person who does the audit. He can veto the audit if he wants to. This is one of the most transparent and corrupt acts that I've seen. And in this presidency, that's actually a difficult standard.
You're shaking your head.
Well, that's not correct. There are 5 people that review the cases. The president that he can fire them, but they have to be hired the same way. And there's a lot of oversight going on in this. And it's not $2 billion. It's not $1.8 billion. It is a restricted fund. It's $1.776 billion.
But that isn't an actual document. That's just a thing they've said.
And any funds after 2028 that are not used will be reverted back to the federal government, unlike Biden's term, where $300 million went to NGOs that didn't even apply for their grievances. So there is a big difference, and there will be oversight. And I think Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche will make sure of that.
Another big story that seems to be breaking tonight is the war with Iran and this debate that seems to be happening within the president's cabinet of whether to move forward with more military action. We have seen that this military action has been deeply unpopular for the American public. Do you think it potentially is worth it to start up the war with Iran again?
Well, Look, we have no visibility on the documents and that he's able to see to make these types of decisions. If you're reading the tea leaves, he's spoken with all of the world, the leaders in the surrounding region, Saudi, UAE, Qatar. What I'm really noticing is this restriction on the Taiwan weapon deal and what kind of pressure China is going to put on Iran here. Now, what that says to me is he's looking for avenues to put pressure on Iran rather than engage in further war. And if you have these surrounding countries that are able to help do that and leverage this, I think we can arrive somewhere. Now, is it a good idea? I can't definitively answer that because the president has.
Do you think the war is going well?
Look, the president is dealing with a regime that wants to build a nuclear weapon, and I think we can all agree the world will not be safer if Iran has a nuclear weapon. Is it unpopular? Yes, but sometimes doing the hard thing is very unpopular.
John.
Yeah, I think it's wildly unpopular. I think both of the way that it's been persecuted, the way that it was messaged around, and also that it directly contradicts basically everything that Donald Trump was saying when he campaigned. I think that's why not just people are frustrated, but particularly independents who crossed over to Trump in 2024, and plenty of Republicans, especially younger Republicans, that absolutely despise this war. I think that Donald Trump should find some way to wind it down. I think that if blowing Iran up was going to solve the problem, it would have solved the problem the last times that we decimated them and sent all their ships to the bottom of the sea. We've done this before. It didn't get them to fold. I mean, maybe he'll make a case for how this is going to be different, but I haven't heard anything. I don't expect it.
Why do you think this is going to be different?
Well, I want to highlight that President Trump in his first term had sanctioned Iran, and he pulled out of the nuclear deal, and he was able to really pull back. And Hezbollah was defunded, Hamas was running out of money, and then October 7th happens when Biden rescinds all of these programs, all of the sanctions that President Trump had. So here we are, 4 or 5 years later, having to fix problems that President Trump was on the path to fixing. So yes, ex post facto, it's not fun to have to go in and say, look, you can't build a nuclear weapon. We were on the way to doing that. Biden didn't continue that. So I think it's absolutely necessary for President Trump to continue to say what he did say, which is you may not have a nuclear weapon.
Last sentence to you. Is this Biden's fault?
Why not? Sure. I wasn't a huge fan of Biden. Put that on him.
Okay, there you go. I guess we found something you guys agreed on. John, Katie, great to see both of you. Have a great weekend. We appreciate it. Up next.
First things first, John Iadarola handled that extremely well. And that moment at the end where he flipped the whole, yeah, but what about Biden argument, right back around, was a thing of beauty. Because that is exactly what these MAGA commentators do every single time without fail. There is no level of corruption, no amount of taxpayer money wasted, no degree of constitutional overreach that they will not immediately try to redirect back toward Biden or the Democrats. That is the entire playbook, and John Iadarola saw it coming from a mile away. Now let's talk about what John said regarding the fund itself, because he was absolutely right. People keep throwing the $1.8 billion number around like it is a hard cap. It is not. There is nothing in the actual document that legally limits this fund to $1.8 billion. It can grow. It can change. And who controls that? Todd Blanche. The same Todd Blanche who appoints the people doing the audits. The same Todd Blanche who can veto those audits if he does not like what they find. Think about that for a second. The person being investigated gets to choose the investigators and can dismiss them the moment they start finding something inconvenient. That is not oversight. That is theater. And then there is the board itself. 5 people selected to review claims. 5 people the president can fire at any time for any reason. So you tell me with a straight face that those 5 people are going to make any decision that Donald Trump does not approve of. Because the moment one of them steps out of line, they are gone. That is not an independent review panel. That is 5 people auditioning to keep their jobs. Katie Zaharia tried to bring up the Pigford settlement from the Obama era as some kind of precedent. But there is a fundamental difference between a fund created with congressional oversight to compensate farmers who were discriminated against by the federal government and a fund created by executive order, controlled entirely by one man with no independent audit process and no hard spending limit. Those two things are not the same. And the fact that she tried to compare them tells you everything about how weak the defense of this fund actually is. Now, on the question of impeachment, I would lean toward what John was getting at. If Democrats take back the House in the midterms, the priority needs to be hearings, real hearings, thorough investigations, accountability on the record, because impeachment without the votes to remove is just noise. What actually matters is charging real crimes, building real cases, and putting the right people in front of the right courts. That is how you create consequences that actually stick. And to anyone still repeating the line that there were innocent people at the Capitol who did nothing wrong and got thrown in prison, name them, give a name, give a case number, give a single documented example of someone who was peacefully standing outside with a sign and received a prison sentence for it. Because every person who was charged was charged based on evidence reviewed by a jury of their peers. If that actually happened to an innocent person, then say the name out loud on national television. The fact that none of them ever do should tell you everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. I will see you in the next one.